Well, what it does mean is that in order to secure the life and property of every citizen in every state in the country, open grazing, night grazing, underage grazing will no longer be allowed in the country. And when you look at it, it is also in the interests of the herders, whereby the governors before now, and this is very important, the governors had agreed before now, and I'm talking of their meeting, I refer to the meeting of the governors, all the governors, held on the 11th of February this year, where they unanimously agreed that open grazing should no longer be allowed in the country. And that indeed, the country has got to the stage where it has to transit to modern husbandry, whereby ranching will replace open grazing. That is the decision of all the governors. So what the southern governors did in Asaba was to reiterate this position. It's a popular decision by all the 36 state governments in Nigeria.
But does this resolution and the position of these governors, does it need to be gazetted? Does it need to be backed by law? Does it need to be passed through the National Assembly or the House of Assemblies of these regions? Because the reason I'm asking is this: if anybody is caught doing this, under what law would they be prosecuted?
Yes, thank you very much. I have read the resolutions, and for me, the governors have done very well. They need to mobilize their northern colleagues. They need to walk their talk. Because if they expect that the presidency will act on these resolutions, I mean, the governors may be wasting their precious time. And what happened today was that the Minister of Information, Legalise Muhammad, said on behalf of the government, oh, we are not opposed to restructuring. However, we don't want the separation of the country. Minister, was he speaking for the president, for the country, and for the federal government? And that was why the governors are asking the president to address the nation by responding to these fundamental suggestions made to advance the cause of the unity of the country, to ensure that there is security of life and property, and that the welfare of our people will be taken into cognizance in line with the provisions of the Constitution.
So, I mean, let me go back.
Will have to, each of the state government will have to make enabling laws to translate the decisions in the communique to legal instruments. Of course, there are some legal instruments in play. We have the animal diseases law in every state that guides the movement of cattle, trade animals. We have in place the regional, some of the states have enacted the regional security networks. Each of the states in the southwest, for instance, Ekitito, or your state, has enacted the Amotekun Core law. In Lagos, you have the neighborhood watch law, and I know now that the northeast zone has always had the JTF, the Joint Task Force, and of course, you have the ISBA, police in the northwest. In the southeast, the governors have just agreed now to set up a regional network called Abube Agu. In the south and the north central, you have vigilante groups, taking care of the security of the people and assisting the police where it is possible. So, in a way, you already have state police in place in each of the regions, in each of the states. What I think is now being demanded is the formalization and a decentralization of the Nigerian police force in order to meet the security challenge the nation is facing.
So, I mean, it comes to a point where, if you look at some of the recommendations made by the southern governors, I'm not sure, in my very little years that I spent, that I've not heard or seen most of these recommendations or resolutions before. The question is, there isn't any of this item that is new, except for the fact that they're asking the president to address the nation. That is one thing that they think is urgent and to be done. But the question is that you said you want the governor to walk the talk. So one of the issues that you have raised is that they need to bring up enabling law. Where does the National Assembly come into play here? The State Assembly might have their own role to play, but in the real picture of it, Mr. Falana, is that does this recommendation, in your own view, solve our insecurity problem, especially in the southern region of the country?
Well, I think for the entire country, these resolutions will be very useful. They have come at the right time. I mean, not too late in the day. I mean, the governors have now formally joined the campaign for restructuring, as opposed to, the demand for balkanization of the country, which in the first place was brought about by the insistence of the presidency to disregard calls for restructuring, even when it is boldly entrenched in the manifesto of the ruling party. That was one of the reasons why some people voted for the APC. When about 3 years ago, it was clear the APC had abandoned the demand for power devolution. Of course, the APC as a party, I mean, when it was clear the federal government, the Buhari administration, was not interested in restructuring, the APC was embarrassed, and the election was around the corner. So the APC quickly set up a committee headed by the governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasir Rufai. That committee came up with profound recommendations on restructuring. Again, the presidency has not acted on the recommendation. Now that the governors are united in demanding for restructuring, the regional groups, nationality groups, PANDEF, Afenifere, Ohanese, ACF, Middle Belt Forum, all of them are now united in demanding for restructuring. So it's a popular cause in the country. With respect to, the only condition, it is only the trade unions, civil rights movement, the human rights community, and the progressive extraction of the human rights community that are conditionalizing the demand for restructuring. Their position is you must have horizontal and vertical restructuring. In other words, the powers that are going to devolve, that are going to be transferred from the center to the regions or the state, must be democratized so that the people can participate in the governance of their country. So that when you set up state police, it won't be like the Nigerian police force. Those states, if you have the structure in place, state police should respect the wishes of our people. There won't be state police force, but state police service to respect the human rights of the people, to ensure that the life and property of every citizen in our country is protected. So that would be the difference. But again, for me, as I said, some of the demands, and that's why I'm saying the governors will have to walk their talk. The demands have been circulating around the country for quite some time. But now that the security situation in the country warrants urgent legislative intervention, the governors will have to proceed by having a meeting of state attorneys general to study these recommendations and put the machinery in place for translating them into laws.
I would like to go.
Assembly,
So
I've also read the position of the southern legislators, southern senators, southern House of Representative members, and so on and so forth. For me, they also tally. These positions also tally with the resolutions of both the House of Representatives and the Senate over insecurity in the country. Both chambers of the National Assembly have called for state police. So beyond what the governors can do through the houses of assembly, the National Assembly will have to now, sponsor a bill for the appropriate alteration of the necessary provisions of the Constitution. And happily, or coincidentally, the National Assembly Constitutional Review Committee will be meeting in all the regions. I think
the public hearing, yeah,
the 26th and 29th of May. And these recommendations have been sent to the National Assembly. And I think what the legislators now want to do is to have the buy-in of our people, the endorsement of the Nigerian people.